You might have noticed there has been quite a steady stream of policies announced by all the parties during this election, as you'd expect. But for voters who will have to make a choice in just a few weeks' time, it's quite tricky to know what exactly the impact of some of those quite expensive policies would be. What, for example, are they going to mean for businesses that employ people up and down the country? And to try and give us an insight into that, we're joined now by the Director General of the Confederation of British Industry, Carolyn Fairbairn. Thank you very much for being in the studio with us.
Good morning.
Today. So what do businesses want to see the next government prioritise?
Well, this is an extraordinary election for business. Next year will be the most important year, I think, in a generation, because we've seen so much uncertainty, investment plans put on hold. So we are looking from the next government to really unlock this. And I think three things, Sophie, are most important. First of all, yes, there's Brexit, but we must get back to the long-term challenges facing our economy around how we build skills for the future, how we do really tackle climate change and inequality, that massive question of fairness. And this has to be a partnership between business and government. So we're looking for that, a resetting of that partnership. We're also looking to get back to competitiveness. The economy has suffered through lack of decision-making, but we need to look at the cost base. We need to look at our immigration policy to make sure that that works for business. And we do need to build those infrastructure projects that have been put on hold, like HS2 and Heathrow. Absolutely fundamental signal that we're open to the world. And finally, of course, getting the right Brexit deal, frictionless trade for our economy and also a great deal for our services. So a really important election, a really important set of policies to get our economy moving again.
And what do you make of some of the policy announcements so far? I mean, the Conservatives, for example, this morning have laid out what they want to see happen with immigration.
So we've seen some, just to take the Conservatives, some good announcements on digital, some good announcements on investment. The immigration policy, I mean, I think one of the things that we absolutely recognise that things will need to change. Public trust does have to be rebuilt, but it has to be done in a way that works for the economy. So when we hear talk
work for the economy?
When we hear talk about brightest and best, I think that is a worry. You know, if you do want to build 200,000 houses a year, you don't just need the architects and the designers. You need the carpenters, you need the electricians, you need the labourers. We need people to come and help us renew our economy. So we'll have to look at the detail. It has to be manageable by small business. The previous visa system was extremely costly and less than 1% of businesses were using it. So the devil will be in the detail, but it's not just brightest and best, it's people at all skill levels across our economy that we need.
Staying with the Conservatives for the moment as well, another feature of this campaign has been Boris Johnson ruling out any extension to the transition if he is Prime Minister, which is not very long to strike a trade deal, to be frank. Is that a worry for you?
Well, one of the things I think it's really important to understand is if you are a business living through the last 3 years, these rolling cliff edges of climbing up a mountain with stockpiling and then climbing down again could not be more damaging. So I think one of our messages to the next government who may be negotiating this deal is don't box yourself in. Don't set new ultimatums and this time create enough time to ensure we can get a good deal for our economy, the right kind of deal.
And so is it boxing himself in, do you worry?
Well, we have to watch the detail. I mean, I think when we come back in the new year and maybe in a position of negotiating a new deal, the first thing that needs to happen is get the right architecture with business so that we have proper evidence-based policy for that new trade deal. And let's make sure that we don't end up with yet another cliff edge, possibly in June or possibly at the end of December. Because every time we do that, we take investment away from our country.
Let's move on to Labour, shall we? Is Jeremy Corbyn a friend to business?
Well, we really understand the questions that Labour are asking. They are asking questions about inequality. They are asking questions about public services. These are the right ones. But we look at the policies on the table and we have real concerns that they are going to crack the foundations of our economy. You look at something like the nationalisation programme, the biggest on record, the fact that we now have a bolt from the blue in terms of BT nationalisation. That will freeze investment. I have talked to businesses who are already sitting there thinking, maybe we're next. So we do say, again, to Labour, work with business, work out different answers to these problems. But this programme that is appearing to value none of the contribution that business makes will simply shut investment out of our country.
What does that mean, freezing investment? Is that job losses? What is it?
Well, at the moment, it means some of the really interesting investments going on hold. We've already heard that in broadband, immediately the announcement was made by Labour. Some very important investments in full fibre broadband have been put on hold. And we need to remember that investment today is jobs of the future. So absolutely. And it's also freezing those things that we need to create productivity in our economy, which has been such a crisis for our country.
It's felt like we've had quite a high-spending election campaign so far. I mean, austerity is out the window. You know, the spending taps are well and truly back on. Is that a good thing? Is that what the economy needs? Or are you worried that now, fiscal responsibility is a bit of a dirty phrase?
Well, we do need investment. It's absolutely right. Look at our creaking infrastructure. Look at the investment we need in skills. But we'd say do that in partnership with business and make sure that these plans are sustainable in terms of our economy. We don't want to get back to a place where we are overspending. So again, the partnership with business. We've got some extraordinary success stories recently. Look at renewables energy and offshore wind. Prices have come down there in ways no one thought was possible. That's private sector investment working with government. So be very careful about excessive spending pledges.
I think it's interesting listening to you here talk about working with business, because it felt like there was a time in politics when people who wanted to be Prime Minister were really keen to work with big business. Tony Blair, David Cameron, and now it's kind of gone a bit out of vogue. Do you think that some are almost seeing big business as the enemy?
Well, I really hope not. I mean, I think it has been a challenging period in terms of business working with government. I think we can't deny that. But we have also seen that in terms of some of these announcements that we've seen, they are exactly what business needs in terms of the digital infrastructure and in terms of investment in skills. So that conversation needs to continue. But as I say, what we do hope is that there will now be a reset, that there is an opportunity, I think, to do some extraordinary things if we work more closely together. Climate change is another example.
But some would say that big business are perhaps part of the problem and not the solution.
I really don't accept that. I think all businesses are part of the solution. Our big businesses, many of them are the most productive in the UK, created fantastic high-quality jobs, working with small businesses in their supply chains. We need to work together. Business is not perfect. We know that there are ways that they can improve, but our businesses employ 27 million people. They invest, they innovate, they are a huge part of the solution, and we need the best possible partnership with government to make that happen.
OK, thank you very much for being on the programme today. Much appreciated. Carolyn Fairbairn from the CBI.